Hi, I'm Angelica. My sister once pushed me out of my wheelchair, on stage during a school performance. 30 minutes later, I picked up the mic, and no one dared to breathe. But what really broke me wasn't the fall. It was the family who watched and said nothing. The mother who forged my name. The father who smiled only for the child that made his life easier. The applause they gave her was rehearsed. But my silence? That was real. They stole my poem, my voice, my place in my own story. So, how did I get it all back, and what did it cost me? I always believed fairness was something you earned. If you worked hard, played by the rules, and didn't ask for too much, the universe, maybe even your family, would meet you halfway. That belief started cracking the morning I rolled into Jefferson Prep, wheels humming softly against the tile. Posters for the Spring Legacy Showcase plastered every wall, bright colors, bold fonts, all featuring one face. Callista's. My sister. My older sister. Her smile beamed from the page like she'd been born into spotlight. Maybe she had. I paused in the hallway, watching a group of students pin up another banner. "Can't wait to hear her open," one girl said, pulling tape from a dispenser. "She's always so polished." No one noticed me. I wasn't a ghost. I was furniture. That evening at home, the breakfast nook turned into a stage of its own. Dad, Merritt, sipped his coffee while reading the local newspaper, humming approval at Callista's mention. Mom, Vera, flitted between the toaster and her emails, throwing compliments like confetti. "Did you see, Cal?" Mom smiled. "They called you the heart of Jefferson. That's not just PR, it's truth." Callista tucked her hair behind one ear, doing that thing where she pretended humility. "It's just a few lines," she said. "You know how they love to hype things up." I cleared my throat. "Has the school finalized the speaker list? I submitted my piece 2 weeks ago." Silence. Dad stirred his coffee. Mom tilted her head without looking up. "Sweetie, I think the slots filled fast. Maybe yours didn't get through." Callista offered a well-timed smile. "You should come and watch, though. It'd mean a lot. We all have our place." That line hit harder than she knew. Or maybe she did know. Either way, it settled in my chest like dust I couldn't cough out. I checked my email that night, twice. Nothing. Not even a rejection. Just silence. I dug through spam, trash, updates. Still blank. I thought about asking again, but the look Mom gave me earlier, the kind of polite dismissal that felt colder than scorn, lingered too long. 3 days passed. Friends whispered about showcase rehearsals. Callista was opening. Everyone knew it. No one questioned why she got the part. Why would they? She was perfect, wasn't she? Walked tall, spoke crisp, born camera ready. One night, after everyone had gone to bed, I crept into the kitchen and opened Mom's laptop. It wasn't locked. Maybe she trusted too easily, or maybe she never imagined I'd question anything. I searched Legacy Showcase. Dozens of emails popped up, updates, confirmations, edits. Then I saw it. A forwarded message originally addressed to me. "We are thrilled to invite Angelica Merritt to be part of our Spring Legacy Showcase." But it had been replied to, by Vera, and resent with a change. "Angelica will be unavailable. Callista Merritt will take her place." The timestamp was 3 days before I even knew the slot had opened. I didn't cry. I didn't slam the laptop shut. I just sat there, hands numb, thinking about how silence can scream when you read it in black and white. The next night at dinner, I tried again. My tone was calm, controlled. I'd still like to be involved. I don't mind reading from my chair. Vera offered a sympathetic look, so rehearsed it might have been pre-recorded. "Honey, the stage has steps. We just didn't want to put you in an uncomfortable position. You know how cramped it gets," Callista added. "Maybe next year, if they build ramps." She didn't say it with venom. That was the trick. It was sugar-coated cruelty, dipped in plausible concern. I stared at my plate, the untouched peas now cold and shriveled. The room filled with empty clinks of silverware. Not one person looked my way. After clearing the table, I wheeled back to my room, passing the hallway where photos lined the wall. Family portraits, awards, a framed article about Callista's community service. My name didn't appear on that wall, not once. I closed the door behind me and opened my own laptop. The screen glowed softly in the dim light, echoing what I already knew. They didn't forget me. They erased me. The day of the open rehearsal was dry and windless, the kind of still air that makes everything feel like it's holding its breath. As I wheeled myself into the school auditorium, I kept my gaze steady, refusing to glance at the display board, where Callista's name had been printed in bold font, right at the top. I didn't need the reminder. The walls said enough, so did the banners, the volunteers, the way people greeted her like she'd been royalty her whole life. I spotted Mom right away, sitting in the front row, straight-backed, poised like she was expecting to be interviewed. She didn't wave at me, didn't even turn around. She was seated beside Callista, smiling like her daughter had just been named valedictorian. I parked myself quietly near the edge of the third row, away from the aisle. No one said anything, not one hello, not even a glance. It was a strange thing, being invisible and watched all at once. After rehearsal check-in, I made my way backstage. Callista was already there, flanked by 2 girls from her honors committee. When she saw me, she turned and reached into a garment bag. "I brought you something," she said, holding out a dress. "Mom said it was better than the one you had. This one's tailored more performance-friendly." I blinked at the fabric. Bright coral, short sleeves, no waist support. Definitely not made to sit well in a wheelchair. "My navy one's already ironed," I said, voice even. "I chose it for a reason." Callista tilted her head, the way she always did before saying something packaged as kindness, but laced with condescension. "This is cleaner on camera, trust me." I didn't trust her, not with anything. But I took the dress anyway, and when I rolled back to the dressing area and changed, I saw it immediately. How the hem rode up when I sat. How the color clashed against my skin. How everything about it screamed misfit. When I came out, people looked. Not in admiration, not even confusion. Just that slight blink of surprise. "Oh, that's what she chose?" Before returning to their conversations. It wasn't an accident. I knew that now. The rehearsal was structured, but loose, mostly a run-through of transitions and blocking. I was allowed to observe, not participate, not read, not speak. I was there, supposedly, to support. Halfway through, someone bumped into the leg of my chair, hard. It jerked sideways, my grip slipping. One wheel caught on the mat, and I tilted just enough to lose control. I didn't fall far, but I fell. 2 backstage crew members rushed over. One caught my arm, the other steadied the chair. I looked up and saw Callista watching. She didn't move, but her eyes locked on mine, and she gave the faintest nod. Not of concern, of control. Later that evening, after I was home and out of the suffocating dress, I opened my phone and found the notification. Callista had posted a photo on her public account. It was the moment I'd slipped. Someone had caught it. Me half out of my chair, expression tight with impact. Caption: "So proud of my little fighter. Even if you fall, you rise." It had over 800 likes within the hour. I hadn't given permission. I hadn't even known the photo was taken. Comments flooded in. "She's lucky to have a sister like you. Beautiful strength from both of you. True inspiration, family goals." My hands shook, not with sadness, with rage so cold it felt clean. I wrote one comment. "Please take this down." 5 minutes later, it was gone. Not the post. My comment. There was no message, no reply. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling fan as it rotated in lazy, indifferent loops. Messages pinged my phone. "You okay? You looked uncomfortable." "Maybe skip the next one?" Dad hadn't called. Mom had said, "You look tired, honey," as if exhaustion had anything to do with being sidelined. They didn't mean harm, I knew. But harm wasn't always loud. It wasn't what they said. It was what they didn't. And that night, as I scrolled through her post again, my pain turned into her moment. I knew something for certain. She wasn't sorry, she was rehearsing. The morning of final rehearsal felt like walking into a courtroom, except I was the only one who knew I was on trial. I arrived early, hoping to avoid anyone, blend into the background. But silence doesn't make you invisible. It only makes your presence more fragile. I wheeled into the auditorium with that practiced ease I'd spent years perfecting. Chin up, pace steady, no squeak in the wheels. The lighting techs were already testing rig spots. Chairs were half stacked. People moved in clusters, organized in chaos. I kept to the side, unnoticed. Vera was in the front again, of course, wearing one of her oversized silk scarves like she was attending a donor gala. She glanced at me, but didn't rise. Just offered a small, tight-lipped smile and turned back to her clipboard. Callista spotted me near the back and started walking over, her steps deliberate. I knew that stride. It meant she had a performance to give. "Let me help you to the front," she said with practiced sweetness. "You'll get a better view." I hesitated. "I'm fine where I am." "Nonsense," she said, already reaching for my handles. "You deserve the front row." I should have insisted, but I didn't want to make a scene. That's always how it starts, doesn't it? The hesitation, the benefit of the doubt. We rolled down the side aisle. As we reached the stage, she leaned down, close enough to smell her expensive hair serum. "Smile," she whispered. "We're family." And with that, she slid her foot against my brake lever. Click, and I felt the release. She stepped forward to adjust the mic. I thought it was a mistake. I thought maybe she'd forgotten. Until she turned back, hand resting on the side of my chair, and bumped me. Not a shove, just enough. The world tilted. My wheel caught on the edge of the riser. Gravity took me faster than I could react. I hit the stage floor on my right side. The impact sent a shock through my elbow. The whole auditorium seemed to inhale. No music, no chatter, just the sudden stop of everything. 2 teachers rushed forward. One of the student techs gasped audibly. The principal rose halfway from his chair but paused, unsure. Then I saw Vera in the front row. She mouthed the words, "Get up, don't cause a scene." My ears rang. Not from pain, from that sentence. Someone helped me back into my chair. I forced a nod, not because I was okay, but because I refused to let them see me unravel. Callista was already mid-apology. "She slipped. Stage is a little uneven. I told them to check those ramps." Teachers nodded, grateful for a quick answer. I sat there, stunned. And somewhere in that stunned silence, a sophomore named Gina recorded the whole thing on her phone. By lunch, the video was circulating. Kids whispered, looked my way. Some averted their eyes. A few came up to ask if I was okay, but none stayed long enough to hear the answer. That afternoon, Gina's mom got a call. "Vera." She respectfully requested the video be deleted. "It was a misunderstanding," she'd said. "We don't want that kind of gossip affecting school morale." The video disappeared by 5th period, but not before I saved a copy. That night, Callista posted a photo of herself backstage, flawless, centered in the frame. The caption read, "Accidents happen, but love remains." I stared at my phone, waiting for her to delete it. She didn't. The school sent out an email, too. An unfortunate incident during practice involving one of our students. All safety protocols have since been reviewed. No name, no responsibility, no mention of what actually happened. It was textbook, passive voice, polished evasion. I knew what this was. They wanted me quiet. They rewrote the script without me. I didn't speak to anyone that evening. I needed the silence, to study it, to understand its shape. It wasn't peace. It was rehearsal space for people who needed time to build their next lie. As I was about to power off my phone, a message popped up from an unknown number. "You looked like you were trying to get attention. It worked. The phrasing, the tone. I didn't need to guess twice. Only one person ever texted like that, my own mother. By the time I got home from school, the quiet had settled in like a guest who never planned on leaving. No one said a word about what happened at rehearsal. Not Mom, not Dad. Callista walked through the house like it was just another day, humming while slicing an apple. Her cheeriness felt rehearsed, just like everything else. Dinner that night was subdued, like always, but colder. I didn't bring it up, not the fall, not the video, not the text I knew she sent. I waited to see if anyone else would. They didn't. Mom passed the butter like nothing had happened. "Accidents are behind us," she said, as if reading from a manual. "Let's not dwell." I stared at my plate. Some accidents leave bruises, some leave blueprints. She paused for a second, just one, and then smiled like she hadn't heard me. "You looked tired, honey. Get some rest tonight." Tired? That's what they always say when they want to shut you down without being obvious. I excused myself early, wheeled down the hallway, and closed the door behind me like I was sealing off a crime scene. In the dim light of my room, I messaged Kayla, the only friend I'd ever trusted to give it to me straight. She and I had stayed close since sophomore year, back when being quiet didn't mean being invisible. I wrote, "Did you see what happened? Do you think I'm overreacting?" Her reply came slower than usual. "I don't know, Angie. Maybe just let it go. You don't want this to be who you are." That stung more than I expected. I knew what she meant. I really did. People like Callista had a gravitational pull. They didn't just win the spotlight, they swallowed everyone else's reflection along with it. I put the phone down. The ache behind my eyes wasn't sadness. It was clarity. It was nearly midnight when I booted up my old laptop. Something had been gnawing at me since the moment Vera told me I'd missed the cutoff. I didn't believe in coincidences anymore. I dug into the trash folder. Nothing at first, just old newsletters and assignment drafts. Then, I remembered Mom's habit of forwarding things between accounts. I searched her name and the word showcase. There it was. An email from the school addressed to me, dated 2 months ago. "We are thrilled to invite Angelica Merritt to open this year's Spring Legacy Showcase with an original piece." A few threads later, I found the response. From Vera. "Angelica won't be available. Callista Merritt will represent the family." Attached was a forged acceptance message with my name signed in neat script. Perfect, polished, and completely fake. The date? The same day Mom told me I'd missed the deadline. I closed the laptop and stared at the wall, the shadows suddenly heavier. "Someone forged my consent," I whispered. "Someone who shares my last name." I slept badly, and by morning, I already knew what I had to do. After lunch, I rolled into the school counselor's office. Miss Carter had always seemed fair, firm, measured. I explained what I found, without drama, without tears. Just the facts. The email, the signature, the replacement. She listened, took notes. Then she folded her hands and said, "Angelica, I know this is hard, but your family, they've contributed a lot to this school. Our literacy lab, the student grants, even the new ramp outside the auditorium. Your mother was instrumental in that." My jaw tightened. "So that's it?" She sighed. "Maybe we could resolve this quietly, before it becomes messy." Messy? It wasn't just my sister who pushed me. It was the system that held the ramp while she did it. I nodded politely, thanked her for her time, and left. As I wheeled down the corridor, I passed the wall of donor plaques. There was my last name, etched in gold. Not mine, of course, hers. That evening, I sat at my desk, opened a blank document, and started writing. Not a poem, not an essay, just the truth. Line by line, I laid it out. The email, the forged consent, the substitution, the posturing. I included screenshots, timestamps, the clip from rehearsal, even the deleted comment thread on Callista's post. It wasn't messy. It was meticulous. When I finished, I sat still for a long time, staring at the cursor blinking like it was daring me to hit send. I didn't. Not yet. They have platforms, but I have proof. And I'm not done yet. 2 nights had passed since I typed every truth into that unsent email. Since then, the silence in our house had grown roots. It stretched from the dinner table to the hallway walls, through the clinking of silverware and the soft shuffle of slippers. Silence, I learned, isn't just absence, it's weaponized avoidance. That evening, Callista was especially animated, laughing as she told our parents about some upcoming press coverage for the showcase. "They want to interview me after the event," she said between bites of her salad. "Ms. Carter thinks it'll be good PR for the school." Vera nodded, proud as ever. "That's excellent, sweetheart. Keep your answers polished. They love sound bites." I pushed a tomato around my plate and said nothing. I waited to see if Merritt, our father, would look at me. He didn't. He reached for his wine instead. It felt like I was the only person who hadn't lost their mind, or maybe I was the only one who finally found it. Later that night, I got the notification. Callista had uploaded a video montage to her social media. I shouldn't have clicked it, but I did. I watched as upbeat music played behind shots of her rehearsing, hugging classmates, sipping tea between sound checks. Then it happened. There I was, in slow motion, tipping out of my wheelchair, arms flailing as I hit the stage. A student tech rushing to my side. My face flushed and twisted in the brief moment of pain. Caption: "Even in the toughest moments, we rise together. Family is everything." Over 20,000 views. Dozens of comments. What strength. Callista's such a rock. This is what sisterhood looks like. I posted one sentence under the video. This wasn't your story to tell. It stayed there for 5 minutes before disappearing. No message, no reply. Just gone. The next morning, I sat on my bed, scrolling, when I got a text from an old friend, Nina. She attached a photo. It was a picture of Merritt and Callista at a school fundraiser, standing in front of a banner that read, "Proud parent of the keynote speaker." He was smiling wide, eyes crinkled, hands resting on her shoulders like she was the only child he'd ever had. No one took that photo of us, ever. It wasn't just the caption. It was the way he looked at her, like he forgot I was his daughter too. I didn't cry. I didn't text back. I just pulled my laptop over and opened the email again, the one I'd written to the school. The truth. The proof. I clicked forward. This time I didn't hesitate. To Literary Committee, jeffersonprep.edu. Subject: Authorship Misrepresentation, Spring Showcase. Body: This is my work. I have the original files, recordings, and timestamps. Attached are scans, drafts, and voice memos dated back 3 months before the showcase invitation. I'm not asking for sympathy or to be reinstated. I'm not here to beg. I'm here to claim what's mine. Attached, 12 items. Send. Then I waited. Days passed. The silence was louder than before. Even the school's usual newsletter skipped its usual cheer. Then an email came, not from the committee, but from Ms. Elliott, a senior literature teacher who'd mentored me 2 years ago. It read simply, "I see you. I believe you. Let me help." That same night, I heard the doorbell ring. Mom answered and brought in a box wrapped in school print tape. "From the office," she said, setting it at the foot of my bed before walking away without explanation. Inside were copies of the printed program for the showcase, 60 pages thick, full color, my poem, my title, but not my name. Across the top, opening piece, written and performed by Callista Merritt. Signed, stamped, approved. They'd printed my silence in someone else's voice. The box was sitting on our porch like a tombstone for my patience. It had the school's crest stamped on every side, sealed clean, official. I wheeled up, pulled it inside, and closed the door softly, not because anyone was sleeping, but because I didn't want to wake the part of myself still hoping this was all a misunderstanding. I opened it slowly, not from fear, but ritual. The first thing I saw was the program. Thick stock paper, embossed cover, Spring Legacy Showcase in shimmering ink. I flipped to the first feature, opening poem, written and performed by Callista Merritt. My fingers didn't tremble out of shock. They trembled because I was done being polite, done asking for what already had my name on it. Monday morning came with a bright sky and tight timelines. I arrived at the school early, ready to rehearse the accessibility segment I was grudgingly allowed to introduce. The auditorium doors were propped open, and I found a quiet aide folding programs near the side hallway. "Room B was reassigned," she said, barely glancing up. "You've got 5 minutes in the secondary hall. Sorry, they overbooked." Of course they had. I didn't argue. I didn't ask why. I just nodded, rolled away from the main space, and found the small carpeted room with a single mic stand and no one to run sound. 5 minutes. That's what they thought I was worth. I practiced in silence. Just me, my breath, and the words I knew by heart. The words they'd taken and stitched into someone else's voice. When I finished, I didn't linger. I wheeled out with a whisper that only the walls heard. 5 minutes is all I need to change the narrative. At lunch, I searched my backpack for the notebook Mom gave me when I started writing, the one where I jotted lines in the margins of receipts and sketched structure between cafeteria noise. It wasn't there. I searched twice, then a third time. Gone. Later, as I passed the language lab, I heard Callista with her group, their laughter spilling out from the open door like perfume. "I told her it clashed with the theme," Callista said, giggling. "Some things are better left out of the spotlight." They didn't steal my notebook for inspiration. They stole it for silence. The final dress rehearsal was that afternoon. The stage was busy, full of noise and bright movements. I waited for my cue, adjusted my mic, and began a few lines to check the sound. Something felt off. My voice barely registered in the space. I motioned to the technician near the soundboard. "Can you raise mine?" He frowned. "Settings are locked. Pre-programmed mix. I can't override it now." Of course not. Callista's mic had perfect clarity. Mine sounded like I was whispering through a scarf. I could have screamed into it, and no one would have heard me. But they would. They would hear me. Maybe not here, maybe not now. But they would. After the rehearsal, I didn't go home right away. I stopped by the park across from school, sat beneath the big pine near the lot, and opened my phone. I pulled up the poem. I recorded it again, from start to finish. My voice was low, measured. Not angry, never angry. Just rooted, grounded. Every breath was deliberate. Every pause carved with care. I uploaded it to a private link. Then I stared at the screen for a long while, letting the quiet fill my ears. "They took the stage," I whispered, "but I own the story." The night before the showcase, I sat cross-legged on my bed, the lights off except for the soft glow from my desk lamp. My room smelled faintly of toner ink and citrus wipes. I had printed and laminated every line of my poem, backed it up to 3 different flash drives, and emailed a copy to myself from 3 different accounts. Twice. They had stolen my words once. That wasn't happening again. In the other room, Callista laughed over a FaceTime call with someone from the school paper. She didn't even bother to close the door anymore. I whispered to myself, tomorrow isn't hers, not all of it. Morning came with too much noise. Early door slams, high heels clicking on tile, voices rehearsing sound bites. The auditorium buzzed like a hive, every corner filled with camera gear, checklists, tension masked as excitement. I wheeled into the prep area, my hands steady, jaw locked. By noon, the volunteers were placing name cards and organizing handouts. I approached one of them, a senior named Jordan, who always wore headphones even when music wasn't playing. "Hi," I said, smiling. "Do you know where the Braille versions of the program went?" "I submitted 20 for the accessibility booth." He blinked. "Oh. Yeah. I think those got dropped. Budget thing. Maybe next year." Next year. They'd printed glossy booklets with Callista's face on the cover, but there wasn't space for 20 embossed pages. It hit me, right then, like the pop of an old balloon in a silent room. This wasn't about forgetting. This was surgical. It wasn't just my mic they wanted quiet. It was my impact. Rehearsal started without much fanfare. A few students were already on stage. The light tech gave me a nod, so I rolled up the ramp and waited behind the curtain. I opened my cue cards, adjusted the small lapel mic they'd handed me, and tried not to think about how quiet my own breathing sounded. "Mic check," I said, voice steady. "Line 1, 2, testing line 3. Suddenly, the spotlight above me flickered and went out. The house lights dimmed a beat later. The room fell into soft darkness. "Sorry," someone mumbled from the tech booth. "Glitch in the automation queue, resetting." I glanced up. The tech guy didn't even look my way. But behind him, I caught the eye of Mia, Callista's best friend, standing near the side panel, arms folded. She smirked. It wasn't a glitch, it was theater. A few minutes later, I wheeled off stage and returned backstage without a word. The others were moving with purpose, laughing, adjusting collars, fixing lip gloss. No one noticed I hadn't finished my mic test, and I didn't remind them. They were expecting me to lash out. They wanted to paint me as dramatic, unstable, fragile. I wouldn't give them the brush. I sat in the far corner of the green room, notebook in my lap, headphones in, but no music playing. Watching. Callista walked by twice. Once, she gave me a glance. The second time, she stopped. "You've had enough chances to make your point," she said, her voice low, calculated. I looked up at her. My reply was quiet, calm. "And I've got one left. The right one." She didn't answer. She didn't need to. She knew. The showcase auditorium had never looked so grand. Spotlights cut through the dim room like blades, casting gold streaks across rows of polished folding chairs. People filled them, parents in Sunday best attire, teachers with programs folded neatly on their laps, donors clustered in the VIP section, whispering about future grants. Phones were out, cameras were ready. I was parked stage left, deliberately placed in the shadows. I wasn't listed in the program, not even as a contributor. I didn't expect a nod or introduction, I just watched. When they announced Callista, the applause was instant, on cue, like a pre-recorded track. She floated onto the stage in her signature confidence, heels tapping like punctuation marks. Her voice carried effortlessly as she approached the microphone. "Tonight, I'd like to open with something personal, a poem I wrote during a season of growth." She began reciting my piece, word for word. But something was missing. Every line she delivered felt too smooth, too polished. It sounded like she was reading, not remembering. She didn't stumble where I had. She didn't pause where pain belonged. It wasn't just that the poem didn't belong to her. It was that it had never lived inside her. Polite claps followed her final stanza. Nothing raucous. No standing ovation this time. Just courtesy. And that was my moment. I rolled forward, slowly but with purpose, until I reached the stage steps. No one moved to stop me. Not security, not staff, not even Vera, who sat frozen in the front row, clutching her program like it was a prayer book. "Can I borrow that mic for a second?" I asked, my voice calm. Callista hesitated, but I didn't wait for her to decide. I took the mic gently and turned to the audience. "I wrote that poem," I said. "Every word. I wrote it at 2 a.m. one night when I couldn't sleep because I felt like nobody in my own house even saw me." The room went silent. "I'm not here to shame anyone," I continued, eyes scanning the crowd. "But I want you to understand something. Words like those, they don't come from a workshop or a brainstorm session. They come from being ignored so long that the only place you exist is on paper." I pulled out printed emails, copies of my original drafts, my voice memos. This was my work. You can plagiarize someone's lines, but you can't plagiarize their pain. You can't plagiarize their voice and expect it to move people the same way. Callista took a step toward me, opening her mouth. I beat her to it. "Before anyone asks for proof, let me show you something." I tapped the tablet beside me, connected to the projector. The screen behind us flickered to life, playing a video of me, time-stamped 3 months prior. I sat at my desk, disheveled, eyes tired, reciting the exact poem. My rhythm, my inflection, my hesitations, my truth. A wave of whispers rippled through the auditorium. A teacher gasped. A few parents leaned forward. Callista stepped back. Sometimes, I said into the mic, truth doesn't need a mic. It just needs a moment. I didn't wait for applause. I handed the mic to the stunned stagehand, turned my chair around, and rolled back into the wings. The crowd didn't cheer. They didn't boo either. They were just quiet. A kind of quiet that feels permanent. 30 minutes. That's all it took to rewrite everything they tried to erase. The moment I rolled off the stage, I felt it. The shift in air, the hush that followed me down the hallway like a shadow that no longer wanted to be behind me. The same students who had smiled politely at Callista now avoided looking at me. Some pretended to be on their phones. Others simply turned their backs. The teachers weren't much different. I caught snippets as I passed. Was that planned? Do you think she had help? Her tone was so calm, like composure was a crime. I sat near the janitor's supply closet, hands still trembling from what I'd just done, not out of fear, but out of something more disorienting. Release. My chest no longer felt like it was holding secrets with every breath. I didn't know what would come next, but for the first time, I didn't feel like I had to brace for it. Applause is loud, but silence after truth? That's thunder. That night, my phone buzzed. An unknown number. You didn't have to humiliate her. You'll regret this. I didn't reply, but I did read it again. Slowly. The punctuation. The structure. The careful cruelty wrapped in faux concern. It was familiar. Too familiar. I cross-checked the message with old texts I had archived from Vera, ones she'd sent when I was younger, whenever I dared speak out or ask too many questions. Her patterns hadn't changed. A quick check through our shared phone account confirmed what I already knew. It was sent from her second line, the number she kept for work emergencies. The worst wounds aren't the ones people see. They're the ones handed to you by the voices that once read you bedtime stories and told you monsters weren't real. Except sometimes, the monsters live down the hall and call themselves Mom. The next day, I received a call from Ms. Elliott, the teacher who'd quietly supported me through this. "Can you stop by my room for a moment after lunch?" she asked gently. When I arrived, she stood by her desk, holding a program booklet. "I just thought you'd want to see this." She opened it to the back page, where the list of acknowledgments had a new line added, scribbled in pen. Original poem written by Angelica Merritt. Handwritten, small, but there. "It's not enough," she said. "But it's something," I nodded. "Something can grow into everything, eventually." Later that week, I found out who clapped first at the showcase. It wasn't a teacher, it wasn't a classmate. It was Odette, the little girl in the front row who couldn't have been older than 8. Her mother found me in the grocery store parking lot. She hesitated before approaching. "My daughter said something after your performance," she began. "She told me, that girl sounded like she meant every word." I swallowed hard. That one sentence became my anchor. Because sometimes you don't need a crowd. You just need one person who hears you without needing to be told what you've been through. The following Monday, the principal scheduled a closed-door reflection session for staff. Callista didn't show up. Merritt didn't speak. Vera didn't even pretend to attend. But one teacher did stand. "It's not just about a poem," he said. "It's about who we listen to and who we silence. That says everything about us as educators." I sat quietly in the back. I didn't speak. I didn't need to. The silence did the work for me. That night, I came home to find a sealed envelope taped to my door. No name. Inside, a single photo. Callista, maybe 7 years old, in a white dress, mid-spin, arms open. Scribbled across the top in Vera's tight script were the words, "She was always meant to lead." I exhaled, not with anger, but with finality. Maybe, but not at my expense anymore. By Monday morning, the school released a memo. No dramatic press release, no assemblies. Just a sterile email from the admin account. Due to confusion over authorship, this year's printed materials for the Spring Legacy Showcase will be retracted and reprinted. We appreciate your patience and understanding. That was it. No names, no apology, but it was the first time they didn't hide behind silence. And just like that, Callista pulled out of her next speaking event. No official reason, no explanation, but the rumors moved faster than facts ever could. Whispers that used to orbit me now clung to her. They didn't say my name, but they stopped saying hers too. The shift was subtle but unmistakable. Teachers who once nodded at me out of politeness now held eye contact longer. Students who'd never acknowledged my presence shared a look that said they knew. Not everything, but enough. 2 days later, I got an email from Eleora. She was my literature teacher before she retired. The kind who saw through you, not just to your talent, but to your silence. Angelica, her message read, I submitted a letter to the district. I thought you should have a copy. Attached was a 2-page statement typed in Times New Roman, single-spaced. I taught both merit girls, she wrote. One wrote from soul, one rehearsed well. There is a difference, and it matters. Her words didn't stop there. Someone quoted her in a local op-ed published online the next morning. The title? Silence isn't always peace. Sometimes it's pressure before courage. I didn't realize how much I needed that sentence until I saw it. That same week, I began receiving messages from classmates, some brief, some clumsy, but all honest. I knew something felt off. I didn't know what to say, and I'm sorry for not saying anything. One, from a student named Malik, landed heavier than the rest. I have a stutter. I've never read a poem out loud in this school. You gave quiet kids a voice. Those 10 words built a sturdier foundation than any award could. The principal, Mr. Gaines, asked to meet. I expected a formality, a forced smile, but instead, he offered a proposal. We'd like you to help us rework our diversity and representation policies, he said. Not as a token, but because you see what we don't. I agreed, but only after I made one thing clear. I won't lend my name to fix what broke me unless you actually plan to rebuild. He nodded. Fair. That afternoon, the student-run media account posted my original spoken word video, the one I'd uploaded privately weeks ago, with my permission. It spread quickly, shared, commented, reposted. The caption was simple. This felt real. This felt earned. Callista's version vanished from her profile hours later. No caption, no explanation. Sometimes justice doesn't roar, it reverberates. That night, after the buzz died down, I returned home to find another envelope on my desk. Same ivory paper, no stamp, no note. Inside was my poem, handwritten in Vera's script. Word for word. No edits, no commentary, just the text. I didn't need the gesture, I didn't even want it, but I kept it. Not for closure, not for healing. I kept it as proof that even the quietest truth echoes longer than any lie. A week passed. Just like that, the noise settled. News faded. The hallway posters were replaced with announcements about spring exams and college prep workshops. Showcase buzz disappeared like it had been swept up in a cleanup crew's last round. Callista didn't come back to campus. Her name, once announced over the loudspeaker daily, went unspoken. No one said where she was, no one asked. Her absence left a strange stillness, like walking into a room where someone had just yelled and everyone was pretending nothing happened. But the silence now wasn't empty. It was earned. That Friday evening, my father knocked softly on my door. I hadn't seen him all week. When I opened it, he stood there holding 2 mugs, coffee for him, tea for me. Got a minute? He asked. I nodded, gesturing to the chair by the window. He sat, cleared his throat, and took a slow sip. You embarrassed your sister. I didn't flinch. No, I unmasked her. That's not the same thing. He looked down at his mug, then out the window. You've always been sharper than you let on. I had to be. He exhaled, heavy and quiet. I see her differently now. And I see you, finally. I didn't say thank you. I didn't need to. He left the mug on my desk and walked out. The next day, Vera texted, "Brunch tomorrow? Just us?" I went. The diner was one of those old Scottsdale classics, leather booths, waitresses with name tags older than their aprons. Vera sat at the corner table, wearing oversized sunglasses like she was dodging paparazzi. We ordered, chit-chatted about the weather. Then, without looking up from her coffee, she said, "It was easier to let one child shine." I raised an eyebrow. "You never made it easy to spotlight you," she added. "You were always complicated." I set down my fork. "Because I didn't bend?" She didn't answer. I paid the bill, stood, and left her sitting there. Closure isn't always shared. Sometimes it's chosen. Back at school, Ms. Elliott invited me into a planning meeting. The principal was launching a new student-led initiative, Voices and Visibility. I was asked to co-lead. No speeches, no parades. Just an invitation to help rewrite what silence had once authored. Callista's name never came up again. There were no group apologies. But classmates started tagging me in posts, adding me to project groups, asking my opinion. Not as a token, just as someone whose voice now had volume. I wasn't a symbol, I wasn't a hero, I was just no longer invisible. And somehow, that was enough. That evening, I passed the hallway photo wall. The same one where I'd once been cropped out of a family picture, replaced by cleaner versions of what Vera wanted to remember. I didn't touch the old frame. Instead, I pulled a small square photo from my bag. Me on stage, mic in hand, caught mid-sentence. No edit, no logo, just real. I pinned it beside the old one. No caption, no frame, just presence. I didn't need to be forgiven. I just needed to be seen. The forum took place in the school auditorium, the same one where the showcase had unfolded just weeks earlier. But this time, it felt different. The lighting was softer, natural daylight from the side windows. The banners were handwritten by students, not printed by PR staff. There were no microphones mounted to amplify a lie. They asked me to open, not as a formality, as a reckoning. I wore no stage makeup, no carefully selected color palette. Just a navy blouse, my mother's old necklace, and the poem I wouldn't recite this time. I had something new, sharper, stripped of performance. This time, I wasn't performing pain. I was presenting truth. The night before, I found a padded envelope waiting for me on my desk. There was no return address, no stamp, no note, just my name written across the front in blue ink. Inside was a copy of the original Spring Showcase planning packet. And tucked inside, an 8/10 memo with Vera's handwriting all over it. One sentence had been circled in red. "If we give it to Angelica, we lose Callista's leverage." It wasn't neglect. It was strategy. I slid that page into a clear sleeve, slipped it into my notebook, and brought it with me to the forum. When I rolled out onto that stage, no one clapped, no one stood. But every eye followed me. Some wide, some guilty, some waiting. I clicked on the projector and displayed the memo for all to see. "I won't take long," I began, voice steady. "You've heard a lot about what happened. What I wrote, what was said, what was taken." I held up the paper. "But what you haven't seen, what I hadn't even seen until last night, is this." Gasps stirred from the back rows. A teacher whispered something that was immediately met with silence. This wasn't about confusion. It wasn't about roles or accessibility or missed deadlines. It was about leverage. It was about control. It was about erasure by design. My voice didn't shake. I didn't cry. I just let the truth stand next to me, like a bodyguard I'd finally hired. A man in the second row, one of the district officials, stood slowly. "We owe you far more than an apology," he said, his voice full but honest. Merritt sat 3 seats over, staring down at his hands. He didn't argue. He didn't speak. But he lowered his head. For the first time, he looked like someone who realized he'd misread an entire story. Vera wasn't there. She didn't need to be. I'd brought her voice with me, inner handwriting, inner phrasing, inner strategy. That was enough. After the forum ended, I exited through the back door. A few reporters were waiting outside, not many, just enough to require an answer. Angelica, do you have a final statement? I looked straight into the camera. My name is Angelica Merritt, and every piece I write now will have it on the front. That was it. I didn't wait for follow-up questions. I didn't pose. I turned and wheeled down the sidewalk, the sun low and warm on my back. As I crossed the lot toward the student center, I noticed her, Callista. She stood near the edge of the lawn, arms crossed, lips pressed tight. She didn't wave, didn't call out, she didn't follow, and I didn't wait. That night, after dinner, I walked past the bookshelf in the hallway. Between a few outdated encyclopedias and dust-covered trophies, I found a frame and opened it. I slid in the planning document, Vera's handwriting in clear view. Not to remember the betrayal, but to remind myself, they tried to erase me. Now I'm the headline.